The first black SUV rolled into the dusty compound like it owned the whole street. Then a second one. Then a third. People stepped out, and everyone else suddenly remembered to stand straight. Clara froze inside her tiny one-room apartment. Her hand was still on the thin curtain she used as a door. The room smelled like pepper and smoke from the jollof rice she had just shared. Her black and white waitress uniform clung to her body from a long day at work. Sweat dotted her forehead. Her feet ached like someone had tied stones to them. Outside, her neighbors began to shout, "Who is that? Did someone die?" Clara's heart kicked hard against her chest. She wasn't expecting anybody. Nobody visited her. Nobody even knew her like that. The SUVs stopped. Dust rose in the air and slowly fell back down like brown powder. Then the door of the front SUV opened. A man stepped out. He looked too clean for the compound. Too expensive. Like the kind of person that didn't belong near cracked walls and rusted zinc roofs. He wore a bright white kaftan that looked freshly ironed. A red cap sat on his head like a crown. He didn't smile. He didn't look confused. He looked like he came for something and he would not leave without it. Two hefty security guards stepped out behind him. Both dark-skinned Nigerian men, tall and wide, with faces that looked like stone. They scanned the compound left and right like hunting dogs. Clara's neighbors backed away, like the air suddenly became dangerous. Clara swallowed. Her fingers trembled as she pulled the curtain aside and stepped out. The man's eyes locked onto her immediately. He took 2 steps forward, slow and calm. The security guards followed like shadows. Clara's throat dried up. She tried to speak, but her voice hid inside her chest. The man stopped in front of her and said in a steady tone, "Excuse me." Clara nodded quickly, her eyes wide. He stared at her like he was checking if she was real. Then he asked, "Are you Clara?" Clara's heart skipped. How did he know her name? She opened her mouth. "Yes, I'm Clara." The man released a slow breath, almost like relief. "My name is Martins," he said. "And the old man you've been taking food to." Clara's eyes widened even more. Martins pointed toward the tarred road outside the compound, toward the uncompleted building facing the street. "Austin," he continued, "is my father." Clara's whole body went stiff. Her mind spun. That homeless old man she fed every day was someone's father, a rich man's father. It didn't make sense. Clara blinked fast, like she could blink the shock away. Martin's voice softened, but his face stayed serious. "We have been looking for him." Clara held her breath. Martin stepped closer and lowered his voice like he didn't want the whole compound to hear. "I went to where he stays," he said. "I found him there. And when I spoke to him, he described your place for me." Clara felt like the ground moved under her feet. Her neighbors were watching, whispering, some were even pointing. Clara's cheeks burned with embarrassment. She wanted to disappear back into her room, but Martins kept talking. "Thank you," he said firmly. "Thank you for taking care of him." Clara's eyes went to Martin's guards, then back to Martins. She didn't know what to say. She only knew one thing: Austin was not a bad man. He was just lost. Martins continued, "My father suffers from acute memory loss. It happens once every year. When it comes, he forgets everything, his name, his home, even me." Clara's lips parted slightly. Martin's eyes looked tired, like he had cried about this in private many times. "We have not found a permanent solution," Martin said. "And when it happens, wherever he ends up, he stays there. He begs, he sleeps on the ground, and he doesn't even know he used to be someone." Clara felt something tight wrap around her heart. She remembered Austin's teary eyes, his shaking hands, the way he always said, "God bless you, my daughter," like that was all he had left. Martins looked around the dusty compound and then looked back at Clara. "It's surprising," he said slowly, "that despite your condition, you still decided to help him." Clara's face tightened. Her condition? She wanted to ask what he meant. But then she remembered her room, the thin mattress on the floor, the empty corner where a cupboard should be. The way her uniform was almost the only good thing she owned. Martins continued, "You've been buying him jollof rice and chicken every day, with your daily pay." Clara swallowed hard. How did he know it was her daily pay? Martins shook his head in disbelief. "People like you are rare to find." Clara's eyes stung. She didn't like praise. Praise felt dangerous. Praise felt like the kind of thing that came before life slapped you. Martin's voice turned businesslike again. "Where do you work, Clara?" Clara hesitated. If she answered, would she lose her job? But she couldn't lie. "I work at a restaurant." she said quietly. A modern restaurant in town. Martin's brow lifted. Name? Clara's mouth went dry. Blue Palm Restaurant. The moment she said it, Martin's mouth became still. Then he gave a short nod, like he had just confirmed something important. That restaurant, Martin said, is owned by me. Clara's knees almost gave way. Owned by him? Martin stared at her and said, From today, Clara, you are the new manager of Blue Palm Restaurant. The compound went silent. Not normal, silent. Not quiet like night. This was the kind of silence that made even breathing sound loud. Clara's neighbors froze like statues. Somebody dropped a plastic bowl and it cracked on the ground. Clara's brain refused to understand the words. Manager? She whispered. Martin's nodded. Manager. Clara's eyes filled with tears, not because she was happy yet, but because she was confused and scared. Sir, I don't understand, she said. I'm just a waitress. Martin's voice became firm. You are a good person, and good people deserve help too. Clara shook her head fast, fear rising in her chest. But my boss, Maria, she won't allow it. She hates me. Martin's eyes narrowed slightly. Maria? Clara nodded, almost pleading. She treats me like I'm nothing. She insults me in front of customers. Sometimes she even... Clara stopped herself. Martin's face hardened. You don't need permission from Maria, he said. Blue Palm is my restaurant. Clara's hands began to shake. This felt too big, too sudden, like a dream that could turn into a nightmare at any moment. Martins turned slightly and opened the back door of the SUV. Enter the car, he said. Clara blinked. Enter? Yes, Martins said. Come and meet my father. Clara looked back at her room at the curtained door, the cracked wall, the thin mattress inside. Then she looked at the convoy, at the guards, at Martin's calm face. She felt like she was standing between two worlds. One world she knew, pain, struggle, being ignored, and another world she had only imagined money, power, safety. Clara took one slow step forward, then another. She climbed into the SUV, careful like she might dirty the seats just by touching them. The guards closed the door. The car began to move. As they drove out of the compound, Clara glanced through the window and saw the uncompleted building by the road. Austin was still there, sitting on the dusty ground, holding the takeaway container she had given him, eating slowly like it was the best food in the world. Clara's chest tightened. Martins noticed her stare. We will pick him up now, he said. Clara nodded, whispering, Please, don't scare him. Martin's face softened a little. I won't. The convoy stopped by the tarred road. Martin stepped out first. The guards followed. Clara slowly stepped out too, her legs weak. Austin looked up. His eyes widened in fear. He clutched the food container to his chest like someone was about to steal it. He tried to stand, but his old knees failed him. Martins walked toward him carefully. Austin, Martins called. Austin stared like he didn't know the name. Martins crouched down in front of him, ignoring the dust. My father, Martins said, his voice shaking just a little. It's me. Martins. Austin blinked. His eyes moved from Martin's face, to the red cap, to the guards, then back to Martin's. His lips trembled. Then he suddenly shouted, Leave me alone. Clara gasped. Austin tried to crawl backward on the dusty ground, panic spreading across his face. He looked like a cornered animal. Clara's heart broke. She stepped forward quickly. Austin, she called softly. Austin's eyes snapped to her. For a second, the fear in his face dropped. He recognized her voice. He clung to that recognition like it was a rope in deep water. Clara? He whispered, confused. Clara nodded fast, crouching beside him. Yes, it's me. You're safe. Austin's hands shook. Why are they here? Clara looked at Martins, her eyes begging him to be gentle. Martins took a slow breath and said, We are taking you home, Baba. Austin stared blankly, like the word home meant nothing. Then Austin's face twisted in pain. He pressed his palm to his head and groaned like something inside his brain was fighting. Clara leaned closer. Austin, are you okay? Austin's breathing became rough. His eyes rolled like he was trying to remember something that ran away. Then his mouth opened and a single name fell out. Martins? Martins froze. His eyes filled instantly. Yes, Martins whispered. Yes, Baba, it's me. Austin blinked. His eyes widened, and suddenly he began to cry deep, heavy tears that made his shoulders shake. He looked at his dirty hands like he couldn't believe they belonged to him. Then he looked at Clara, still crying, and said in a broken voice, "Why? Why did I sleep on the ground?" Clara's throat tightened. Martins reached forward slowly, his hands shaking, and tried to hold his father. But Austin pulled back again, suddenly panicked. "No!" Austin cried. "Don't touch me, don't touch!" Austin's eyes darted around wildly. His breathing grew faster. His face showed fear again, like his memory was coming and going at the same time. Clara held her breath, because in that moment she realized something terrifying. Austin was not fully back, and if he slipped away again, Martins might lose him right there on that dusty ground, right in front of her. And Clara didn't know if she could handle seeing that. Austin's body shook harder. Then he grabbed Clara's wrist tightly and whispered with raw fear, "Clara, please, don't let them take me." Clara's eyes widened as Martin stood up quickly, his face turning sharp as he looked at his guards. And Clara suddenly understood. This wasn't just a rescue. This could turn into a struggle, because Austin might fight them. And if he screamed, if people gathered, if something went wrong, Clara's life could change forever in the next 5 minutes. Martin stepped forward and said, firmly, "Baba, I'm taking you home." Austin's eyes filled with terror again. He opened his mouth to scream, and Clara's heart nearly stopped. Austin's mouth stayed open, the scream caught halfway in his throat. Clara reacted without thinking. She tightened her grip on his wrist and leaned close, her voice low and calm, the way she always spoke to him when he was afraid. "Austin," she said gently, "it's okay. Nobody will hurt you. Please, trust me." Her eyes locked into his. Austin's shaking slowed a little. His chest still rose and fell too fast, but the scream never came out. Martins watched them closely. For the first time since he arrived, his hard billionaire confidence cracked. What he saw in front of him wasn't business, power, or money. It was an old man clinging to the only person who had shown him kindness while he was lost. Martins raised his hand to the guards. "Step back," he ordered quietly. The guards obeyed immediately. Martins crouched again, lowering himself to Austin's level. "Baba," he said softly, "nobody is forcing you. We are only going home. Clara will come with us." Austin looked at Clara. His fingers tightened around her wrist. "She will?" he asked, his voice small like a child's. Clara nodded quickly. "Yes, I'm right here." Austin studied her face like he was searching for lies. After a long moment, he nodded. "Okay," he whispered. Martins let out the breath he didn't know he was holding. With care, they helped Austin into the SUV. Clara climbed in beside him, letting him hold her hand the whole way. Martins sat opposite them, watching his father like he might disappear if he blinked too long. The convoy moved. As the dusty streets gave way to smoother roads, Clara stared out the window, stunned. Tall buildings rose around them. Clean streets, bright billboards. Lagos looked like a different world from inside the SUV. Austin leaned his head against her shoulder. "She smells like home," he murmured. Clara's chest tightened. When they arrived at the mansion, Clara almost forgot to breathe. The gate alone was taller than her entire apartment. As it opened slowly, she saw wide green lawns, tall palm trees, and a white mansion glowing under the evening sun. This place didn't look real. Austin lifted his head and stared. Something flickered in his eyes. "I know this place," he whispered. Martin's heart skipped. "Yes, Baba, this is your home." They helped Austin inside. The marble floor felt cold under Clara's feet. Everything smelled clean and expensive. But Austin suddenly stopped walking. His face twisted again. "No," he said sharply, "this is not my house." Martins froze. "Baba," Austin shook his head. "This place is too big. I don't belong here." His breathing quickened again. Clara quickly stepped in front of him. "Austin," she said softly, "remember the blue chair you told me about? The one where you used to sit in the evenings?" Austin blinked. "The blue chair," he repeated slowly. Clara nodded. "Yes. You said it was beside a window, and you liked to drink tea there." Austin's eyes softened. He looked around again. Then his gaze landed on a familiar blue armchair near a large window. His lips trembled. "That's it," he whispered. "That's my chair." His body relaxed. Martins felt tears burn his eyes. They guided Austin to the chair. He sat down heavily, exhausted. His eyes closed for a moment, then opened again clearer this time. He looked at Martins properly. "My son," he said hoarsely. Martins dropped to his knees in front of him, without caring who was watching. "I'm here, Baba." Austin cupped Martin's face with trembling hands. "I'm sorry," he whispered. I always forget. Martins shook his head, tears falling freely. As long as you come back, Baba, that's all that matters. Austin's eyes moved to Clara. He stared at her, recognition flooding back fully now. You, he said, his voice thick. You fed me. Clara nodded, tears rolling down her cheeks. Yes, sir. Austin struggled to stand, but Martins helped him. Then, to everyone's surprise, Austin pulled Clara into a tight hug. Thank you, he cried openly. When everyone ignored me like I did not exist. You saw me, Clara cried into his shoulder. That night, Clara stayed at the mansion. She slept in a guest room bigger than her entire apartment, but sleep didn't come easily. Her mind replayed everything. SUVs, Martins, the promotion, Austin's tears. By morning, she still felt like she might wake up and find it was all a dream, but it wasn't. Martins knocked on her door early. Get ready, he said. We're going to the restaurant. Clara's stomach twisted. Blue Palm Restaurant. The place where Maria ruled with sharp words and cruel looks. When they arrived, staff members froze. Whispers spread like fire. Is that Clara? Why is she with him? Isn't that the owner? Maria came out of the office, her heels clicking loudly. Her eyes landed on Clara and narrowed. Before she could speak, Martins raised his voice. Everyone, he announced, this is Clara. As a 5, in Trident 1, he placed a hand lightly on Clara's shoulder. From today, he continued, she is the new manager of Blue Palm Restaurant. Gasps filled the air. Maria's face drained of color. What? She snapped. That's impossible. Martins turned to her slowly. Maria, he said coldly, you will now work under her. You are the assistant manager. Maria staggered back like someone slapped her. Clara felt the weight of every eye in the room. Martins leaned toward Clara and whispered, be strong. Then he walked out. The moment he left, the room exploded with whispers. Maria stared at Clara with pure hatred. This won't last, Maria hissed. You think you've won? Clara swallowed, forcing herself to stand tall. I'm just here to do my job, she said calmly. But inside, fear churned. Days passed. Clara worked hard. She treated staff with respect. Customers noticed the change, but Maria watched her closely, too closely. One afternoon, Clara noticed something strange. Her juice tasted bitter. She paused. Maria stood nearby, watching. Clara's heart pounded. She quietly switched the glasses. Minutes later, Maria reached for the juice. Clara grabbed her wrist. What did you put in it? Clara asked sharply. Maria's face went pale. Staff gasped. Security was called. Maria broke down crying, denying everything. Martins arrived shortly after. When he heard what happened, his face hardened. But instead of firing Maria immediately, he gave her a warning. Next time, he said coldly, you won't be standing here. Maria nodded, defeated. From that day, she changed. Not because she became kind, but because she became afraid. Clara slowly grew close to Austin. They spent evenings talking in the garden. Austin told stories of his childhood. Clara told him about her parents, both police officers, killed in an ambush. Austin held her hand as she cried. You are my daughter now, he said gently. Slowly, Clara and Martins also grew close. Quiet conversations turned into laughter. Laughter turned into something deeper. One evening, as they stood in the garden under soft lights, Martins looked at Clara differently, like he saw her not as a miracle, but as home. He reached for her hand, and Clara felt her heart race. But somewhere in the shadows, someone watched. Maria stood by a window, her eyes cold, her lips curled into a thin smile, and Clara did not know it yet, but Maria was not done. Clara began to understand something important about power. Power did not always shout. Sometimes it smiled. Maria smiled a lot now. Every morning, she greeted Clara with a soft voice and forced politeness. She offered help. She asked questions. She even brought snacks to the office. At first, Clara felt relieved. Maybe Maria had finally accepted the truth. Maybe the fight was over. But something deep inside, Clara refused to relax. Because Maria's eyes never smiled with her mouth. They watched. They calculated. And they waited. Business at Blue Palm Restaurant grew fast. Customers noticed the change. Food came out on time. Staff stopped arguing. The air felt lighter. Reviews online improved. Martins visited often, always calm, always observant. And every time he came, Maria grew quieter. One afternoon, Martins called Clara into the private office. You're doing well, he said. Better than I expected. Clara smiled, shy but proud. Thank you, sir. Martins looked at her seriously. I want you to attend the Lagos Hospitality Managers' dinner next week. Represent the restaurant. Clara's breath caught. That event was for top managers. Big names. Powerful people. Me? She asked. Martins nodded. You earned it. Outside the office, Maria overheard everything. Her nails dug into her palms. That night, Clara returned to the mansion exhausted. Austin sat in his blue chair by the window, humming softly. Come, he said warmly. Sit with me. Clara sat beside him. You are glowing, Austin said. Like someone whose life is changing. Clara smiled weakly. Sometimes I'm scared, Baba. Austin nodded slowly. Change is always loud inside the heart, but goodness is never wrong. Clara rested her head against his shoulder. She didn't notice Martins watching them from the doorway, his eyes soft. At the restaurant, Maria began her real plan. She started small, a missing receipt here, a wrong delivery there. Each time, Maria whispered just enough doubt into other staff members' ears. Strange things are happening since she became manager. She's young. Maybe she's overwhelmed. She's too close to the owner. Clara noticed the tension but pushed forward, until the audit notice arrived. An unplanned inspection. Clara's stomach dropped when she read it. An audit could destroy her if anything went wrong. Maria offered help immediately. I'll organize the records, she said sweetly. You've been so busy. Clara hesitated, but time was short. Okay, Clara said. Thank you. Maria smiled. The night before the audit, Clara couldn't sleep. She checked the records again and again. Everything looked fine. Still, fear pressed against her chest. At dawn, she prayed quietly. Please, she whispered. Let truth stand. The auditors arrived sharp and serious. Files were reviewed. Questions were asked. Maria stood nearby, calm, too calm. Then one auditor frowned. There's a missing transaction here, he said. Clara's heart skipped. She leaned forward. That can't be right. The auditor turned the screen. A large amount, unaccounted for. The room went silent. Maria gasped dramatically. Oh my, Clara, did you forget to log it? Clara stared at the screen, confused. I've never seen that before. The auditors exchanged looks. This is serious, one said. Clara's hands shook. This was it. This was how everything ended. Just then, the office door opened. Martins walked in. What's going on? He asked calmly. The auditors explained. Martins listened carefully. Then he turned to Clara. Did you authorize this transaction? No, Clara said firmly. Never. Martins nodded once. Then he turned to Maria, who handled the records last night. Maria opened her mouth, but before she could speak, a staff member burst in. I'm sorry, the young man said nervously, but I found this. He held up a flash drive. I was cleaning the office. It fell from behind the cabinet. Oh, Graham. The auditors took it. They checked the contents. The room grew tense. Then one auditor looked up sharply. This transaction was edited late last night, he said. From this device. He turned the screen. Maria's name appeared. Maria's face drained of color. I was only trying to help, she stammered. Martin's voice was ice. Leave, he said. Now. Maria fell to her knees, crying. Security escorted her out. Clara sank into her chair, shaking. Martins placed a steady hand on her shoulder. You passed the test, he said quietly. But Maria's eyes, as she was taken away, burned into Clara's memory. This was not over. That evening, Martins found Clara in the garden. You could have lost everything today, he said softly. Clara nodded. I know. You didn't, he said. Because you stayed honest. Silence stretched between them. Then Martins took a deep breath. There's something I need to tell you. Clara looked up. My father insists you stay here permanently, Martins said. He says this is your home now. Clara's eyes filled with tears. Before she could respond, Martins continued. And I agree. Their eyes met. Something unspoken passed between them. A feeling too big for words. Martins reached for her hand. Clara didn't pull away. But before either of them could speak, Austin's voice rang out from the house. Martins, he shouted, sharp with fear. They rushed inside. Austin stood in the living room, pale and shaking. It's happening again, he whispered. I feel it. Clara's heart dropped. Austin clutched his head. I'm slipping, he said. Please, don't let me disappear. Martins froze, because this time, Austin was fully aware, and the memory loss was coming anyway. Clara stepped forward, tears streaming. And in that moment, she realized something terrifying. Love had entered her life. And now, she might have to watch it suffer. Austin's hands trembled as he pressed them against his head. "I can feel it," he whispered again, his voice thin with fear. "It's like sand slipping through my fingers. I don't want to forget you. Not again." Clara rushed to him and held his hands firmly, as if strength could travel through touch. "You won't disappear," she said, even though her chest hurt with doubt. "You're here. We are here." Martin stood frozen for a second, then quickly pulled himself together. "Doctor," he called out loudly. "Call the doctor now." Within minutes, the mansion felt different. Calm vanished. Nurses hurried in, phones rang. Footsteps echoed on marble floors. Austin was guided gently to his room. As he lay on the bed, his eyes stayed locked on Clara. "Stay," he pleaded softly. Clara nodded without hesitation. "I'm not going anywhere." The doctor arrived quickly. After examining Austin, he sighed. "It's the same pattern," the doctor said quietly to Martins. "The episode is stronger this time. He may lose his memory faster, but he could also recover faster." Martins clenched his fists. "Is there anything else we can do?" The doctor shook his head. "Just keep familiar faces around him. Familiar voices. Familiar emotions." Clara stayed by Austin's side all night. She talked. She talked about the road where they met, the uncompleted building, the taste of jollof rice and chicken. She talked about the way he always smiled after eating, even when his clothes were torn. Austin listened. Sometimes his eyes were clear, sometimes they were empty. At one point, he looked at her and asked gently, "Who are you?" Clara's heart cracked. "I'm Clara," she said softly. "Your daughter, in your heart." Austin frowned, confused, but moments later, he grabbed her hand again. "Don't go," he whispered. By morning, Austin slept deeply. Clara stepped outside the room and finally allowed herself to cry. Martin stood nearby, his face tired and pale. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "You didn't sign up for this pain." Clara wiped her tears. "I didn't help him because I expected anything," she replied. "I helped him because he was human." Martins looked at her like he had never seen her before. That day, Martins took Clara back to the restaurant. He didn't want her life to pause because of his family's trouble. But trouble was already waiting. Maria was back, not inside the restaurant but across the street. She stood beside a small food stall, watching. Her eyes followed Clara as she entered. Clara felt the chill immediately. Inside, work continued smoothly. Staff respected Clara now. They trusted her. But whispers followed her. "Maria is telling people stories," one staff member whispered. "She says you slept your way to the top." Clara's breath caught. "She's spreading lies," another added. Even online, Clara felt like the ground was shaking under her feet again. That evening, Martins showed her his phone. Headlines filled the screen. "Restaurant manager in scandal with billionaire owner. Was promotion earned or given?" Clara's hands shook. "I didn't do anything wrong," she whispered. "I know," Martins said firmly. "But lies move faster than truth." Clara looked at him, fear shining in her eyes. "I don't want to ruin your name." Martin stepped closer. "You won't. I won't allow it." But Maria wasn't done. That night, she made her boldest move yet. She snuck into the restaurant after closing hours, using an old spare key she still had. She poured a clear liquid into a bottle of juice, Clara's juice. The next morning, Clara arrived early. She picked up the juice bottle and raised it to her lips. But something stopped her. A smell. Faint, sharp, and wrong. Her heart raced. She remembered the last time. Clara set the bottle down and called security quietly. When Maria was caught red-handed nearby, the truth exploded. Police were called. Maria screamed and denied everything. But the evidence was clear. She was arrested. As she was taken away, she looked straight at Clara and shouted, "You stole my life." Clara trembled, but she stood tall. Back at the mansion, Austin had a good day. He remembered Clara's name, he remembered Martin's. He even laughed. "I'm still here," he said proudly. Clara hugged him tightly, tears of relief running down her face. That evening, Martins invited Clara to the garden. Soft lights glowed among the trees. The air smelled of flowers. Martins stopped walking. He turned to her. "Clara," he said, his voice unsteady. "My father says you saved his life. I say you saved mine too." Clara's heart pounded. Martins slowly knelt down. Clara gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. He pulled out a small velvet box. "I don't know what tomorrow holds," he said, "but I know who I want beside me always." He opened the box. Inside was a ring that sparkled softly under the lights. "Will you marry me?" Martins asked. Tears streamed down Clara's face. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I will." Applause broke out behind them. Austin stood at the balcony, clapping slowly, tears in his eyes. "My son," he said proudly. "You chose well." Preparations moved fast. The wedding was planned at the most expensive hotel in Lagos. News spread, but this time, the truth followed. Clara became a symbol of kindness. The wedding day arrived. Music filled the grand hall. Guests rose as Clara walked in. Austin stood strong beside her, dressed in a blue kaftan and red cap. As he walked her down the aisle, he spoke with a steady voice. "I am pleased to be alive," Austin said, "to witness my only son marry the woman who fed me when I had nothing, who saw me when I was invisible." The hall wept. Years passed. Clara and Martins waited. Hospital after hospital, prayer after prayer. 4 years of hope and heartbreak. Then one night, a cry filled the delivery room. A baby girl was born. They named her Victoria. Clara held her daughter and smiled through tears. But as Austin held the baby, his hands suddenly trembled. His eyes glazed over. He looked at Clara slowly and asked, "Who is this child?" Clara's breath caught in her throat, because she knew that question. And she knew what it meant. The room went quiet, too quiet. The tiny baby in Clara's arms stopped crying, as if even she felt the weight of the moment. Austin stood there, holding Victoria carefully, his hands shaking, his eyes searching faces like a lost child in a crowded market. "Who is this child?" he asked again. Slower this time. Clara felt the question strike her chest like a stone. Martins froze beside her. The doctors exchanged worried looks. Clara's legs felt weak, but she did not move back. She stepped closer to Austin and smiled through the pain in her eyes. "She is Victoria," Clara said softly. "Your granddaughter." Austin frowned. "My granddaughter?" Clara nodded. "Yes, you named her mother. You walked her down the aisle. You prayed for this child." Austin stared at the baby's tiny face. His eyes softened. "She looks like someone I love," he whispered. Clara's heart cracked open. "That's because you do love her," she said gently. Austin looked at Martins. "My son?" he asked. Martins swallowed hard and nodded. "Yes, Baba, I'm here." Austin blinked slowly. Tears rolled down his cheeks. "I hate this sickness," he said in a broken voice. "It steals my life in pieces." Clara placed her free hand over his. "It doesn't steal your heart," she said. "Your heart always finds its way back." Austin looked at her for a long time. Then he smiled faintly. "I know you," he said suddenly. Clara's breath caught. "You are the girl who fed me." She laughed through tears. "Yes, I am." Austin nodded. "Then I am safe." The doctors advised rest. That night, Clara did not sleep. She sat by Austin's bedside, rocking Victoria gently, whispering stories into the quiet room. She told Victoria about dusty roads and jollof rice. She told her about kindness. She told her about a homeless man who was never truly homeless, because love found him even when his mind was lost. Weeks passed. Austin's memory came and went, like the tide. But something had changed. Whenever he forgot names or faces, one thing remained: Clara. He always recognized her. The doctors noticed it. "She is his anchor," one doctor said. "His emotional memory holds on to her." Clara did not see herself as special. She only saw herself as human. She continued to run the restaurant with calm strength. Staff respected her deeply. Customers admired her story. Blue Palm Restaurant became one of the most loved places in Lagos, not because it was fancy, but because it felt warm. Maria's trial quietly came and went. She was sentenced and disappeared from their lives. Clara never celebrated it. She simply moved on. Martin stood by Clara, always not above her, not in front of her, but beside her. They learned to love slowly, carefully, with patience shaped by pain. Austin grew older. His steps became slower. His memory became weaker. But his smile stayed. Every evening, he sat in his blue chair by the window. Victoria often crawled toward him, laughing. He would clap and say, "This child brings light." Sometimes he remembered she was his granddaughter. Sometimes he didn't, but he always held her gently. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky orange, Austin called Clara to him. "Sit," he said. She sat beside him, just like the first day at the mansion. "Tell me again," he said quietly. "How we met." Clara smiled and began. She told him about the uncompleted building, the dusty ground, the jollof rice and chicken. The way he always thanked her like it was a prayer. Austin listened with shining eyes. When she finished, he nodded slowly. "You gave me dignity when I had none," he said. "Promise me something." Clara swallowed. "Anything." "When I am gone," he said gently. "Never stop being who you are." Clara shook her head. "You're not going anywhere." Austin smiled sadly. "We all go somewhere." Tears rolled down Clara's face. That night, Austin passed peacefully in his sleep. There was no pain, no struggle, just quiet. The mansion woke to silence. Martins held his father's hand and cried like a child. Clara held him too. At the funeral, the hall was full. Rich men, poor men, people Austin once helped, people who once ignored him. Martins stood strong, but his voice shook as he spoke. "My father once lived like a beggar," he said. "Not because he was poor, but because he was lost." He turned and looked at Clara. "He was found," Martins continued, "because one poor waitress chose kindness over comfort." Clara bowed her head. Victoria clapped her tiny hands, unaware of loss, only feeling love. Life moved forward. Years passed. Victoria grew. She became kind, curious, and gentle. One day, while walking with Clara, she pointed to an old man sitting by the road. "Mummy," she said, "is he hungry?" Clara knelt and smiled. "Yes, baby." Victoria held out her snack. The old man smiled, and in that moment, Clara felt it. The circle. The story. The truth. Kindness always comes back home, and somewhere beyond memory and time, Austin smiled too. What is your view about this story? Where are you watching from? If you enjoyed this story, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.